I think everybody knows it as the castle, and that's been its moniker since it was built in the 1930s.
Utah had one of the highest unemployment rates in the country during the Great Depression, reaching a staggering 36%. From 1936 to 1937, the Works in Progress Administration and the Civilian Conservation Corps started construction of the recreation area at the Utah State Hospital to combat unemployment in the area. The recreation area spanned 3 acres and featured an 800-seat stone amphitheater and a pair of towers, giving the structure a castle-like feel. Also known as the Castle Amphitheater, this Provo landmark was one of 232 buildings constructed in Utah by the WPA in the 30s and 40s. The National Park Service designated it as a historic place in 1986. According to Janina Chilton, the Utah State Hospital historian, the hospital embraced the project with open arms.
The superintendent here loved the idea because he really wanted it to have all these amenities. He really wanted something for the patients to do here recreationally. It's a huge structure, it's amazing. Of course, we had, at that time, probably 1,100, 1,200 patients. We ended up 1,500 by the 1950s. So it was, we had a lot of people here, and again, no recreational areas.
Dr. Garland H. Pace, the superintendent at the time, believed that patients suffering from mental illness would benefit because, quote, one of the best and most neglected ways to mental health is through play and recreation. Chilton says after the recreation area was built, it was used just a handful of times. The area was hard to access for some patients, and the ones that could make it up there outnumbered the chaperone around 50-1. But the biggest reason it wasn't used was the lack of bathrooms. This started to change after the hospital got the chance to do some much-needed renovation of the amphitheater, as the lack of use had eroded some of the more impressive details.
We got funding in 1976 when the United States turned to 100. The Bicentennial Commission was allocating money to restore things that had historic merit. And so we petitioned to restore the castle because it hadn't really been used. It had sat there and it was kind of crumbling, the rock work and so forth. So they gave us funding, and we restored all the rock work and built a restroom up there, which was critically important.
Chilton says the designation as a historic place on the National Registry is only part of the reason the castles have been maintained and preserved over the years.
We've worked really hard to restore it and to make sure that the work of the people from the 1930s is maintained, because that was a tough time in the United States, and we should never forget the contributions that those people made during a very, very difficult time.
Over time, BYU students discovered the castles and helped build a park, and the hospital built a fishing pond. But the castle truly came alive in the 70s. The haunted castle is what put the recreation area on the map. The first one was in 1971, and Chilton says haunted houses were everywhere and often used as fundraisers, something the hospital decided to implement when the patients wanted to get in on the spooky festivities.
They wanted to celebrate Halloween, so we had these big empty wings, and so we thought, we'll just start our own little spook alley on campus. And because all of our family started thinking this was fun, so they came up.
The March of Dimes came out and partnered with the hospital for a couple of years. But the hospital kept the spooky season celebration going all the way until 1997.
That's exactly when the public became aware that we had this huge, wonderful facility. But when it got really popular, and stigma certainly became an issue. And so when that became an issue, we decided to discontinue it.
Chilton says at the time there were rumors about the patients working in the haunted castle itself.
They were not. They helped build all the sets, but very few patients were actually in the castle itself.
According to an archived article from Deseret News in 1998, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill sent a letter to then-Governor Mike Leavitt to close the, quote, barbaric and dehumanizing haunted castle, even claiming the hospital exploited the public's fear of mental illness at the patient's expense. Chilton says the hospital never meant for the attraction to be controversial, and that they were trying to make fun of the stigma and tropes surrounding mental health. She also says they worked on destigmatizing the false narrative surrounding mental health in the community. And although the haunted castle was extremely popular among the community and was beloved by the patients who got to help build the sets, the closure really impacted the recreation budget that the hospital used to take the patients to do activities like skiing and camping. They worked with the state to close the haunted attraction, and in return, the state helped the hospital with recreation funds.
We knew it was going to take a huge hit with our recreational program, so the legislature did give us some funding. I don't remember how much it was, because we're making about $100,000 a year on that castle.
Since losing those funds, Chilton said the hospital has made do and really uses the amphitheater for its intended purpose: recreation.
We have a Frisbee golf course on the front lawn. Over time, we built a fish pond up there that we stock with fish. There's a little campground, there's a park. So we use it as a hospital a lot.
The grounds are open to everyone in the state. Chilton says that people hike up to the tower that overlooks Utah Valley, and there are some who like to use the Frisbee golf course. They even had plays in the amphitheater pre-COVID. All of this brings joy to Chilton, because the stigma around the state hospital and castles has evolved from once being known as the territorial insane asylum by the dump, to now being a space embraced by the community.
This used to be a place where people were very afraid to come. So we've been working really hard on stigma all these years, and it really makes us feel good when people want to come up on the campus, want to go up to the castle, because it's now a place of peace, and people aren't afraid to come up here.